But you just mentioned that we have a couple of other folks that are going to be, along for the ride with us. And one of them is Tim Purington, who is the storm chaser that we have kind of exclusively here at Fox 9. We wanted to keep you up, Cody, if that's okay.
Yeah,
Hi,
that's
Tim.
fine. I'm going to pull up the current radar, so keep going.
Could you do that? So let's welcome in Tim Purington. Thank you for being with us. We appreciate it.
Amy.
Hey.
How are you?
Good. And you're in a good place. You've got somebody driving for you here, so we're stopped and everybody's safe. But I want to know kind of where you've been today and what you're looking at, where you're looking at going here in the next 30 to 45 minutes.
So we're going to be traveling west towards the New Ulm area, and we'll start out somewhere in that area and wait for that line and other storms to fire as they move towards the metro. And so that's the plan right now. One thing that I want to point out too is in the metro now, it's, temperatures are in the low 60s. It's cloudy. It doesn't really feel like a storm kind of day. And we don't want people to be complacent in any way, is to think that this is nothing, and because these storms are going to come in very quick, and they'll be able to fire very without any warning. So it's important to think that just what's going on right now doesn't seem to be the conditions for severe weather today.
And Tim, Cody, can I ask him just one quick question? I'm
Sure.
going to have you pop in. I'm just curious, Tim, as you were kind of watching the forecasts and watching, even last week as we get closer and closer, you're starting to see what's coming. What was kind of going through your mind? Because by all accounts, by what Cody's been telling us and our other meteorologists, this is, it falls on the more rare side than common.
Yeah, we have a very sheared environment, very strong winds in the upper level and at the lower level. And then you're adding warm, moist air that isn't here in the metro yet, but, coming up on the south, and you have all the ingredients in place to have a very high severe end. It's just not very, very common in this area, especially this time of the year.
Okay. Cody, you want to jump in?
Yeah, Tim, I actually wanted to ask you, so we've been talking a lot about this line, and it does look, in my opinion, and I think your opinion, a very linear event, meaning a line of storms kind of crossing the state. Do you put any stock to maybe a couple of isolated storms developing out ahead of it? What's your overall thoughts on the isolated storm factor out ahead of it that would give some folks a little bit higher probability of tornadoes?
Yeah, so right now it does look linear, like you're saying, like because of the winds, they're kind of running parallel or directional. So the thing is, most of these storms right now look to be linear, and more having tornadoes embedded in that line. They won't last as long, but they're almost more dangerous because you won't see them. They'll be embedded in the line. If we can get those winds to veer a little bit and be able to create a couple storms out in front of this line, and that's where people, if they're watching radar or whatever, and they're just focused on that line, and then all of a sudden you have a couple cells that'll fire in front of that line, that's when things can get very dangerous. And if they can stay isolated, then we could really see some long track dangerous tornadoes.
Yeah, and to the average eye and to the average folk, the line will appear bigger. It will look more menacing on a radar versus this little tiny storm or a couple little tiny storms out ahead of it, but really not to negate the threat along the line. But if we can get a couple out ahead of it, those are the ones you as a viewer, you as Joe Schmo, you as us really are going to be more focused on, just because that can harbor the stronger tornadoes.
Exactly, and they will come up quick. This is not something that's going to be slowly developing. They're going to develop rapidly if there's anything out in front of that line.
And Tim, along those lines, if I could I think we just should say, you're a trained storm chaser, and there might be people who on any other kind of a storm will run out there and get in their car and try to do something. Can you kind of walk us through why, this is different and your advice to anybody who might be thinking about doing that?
Yeah, so it's hard without getting too technical, where on days where we're chasing a tornado on a warm front or something like that, where it's slowly moving and the shear is lower. With this high shear, these storms can go up in 15-20 minutes and then dropping very fast moving tornadoes. and you can get yourself caught. You're not knowing the road network, not thinking ahead. You might be traveling on an east-west road and the road dead ends, and now what? Do I go north? Do I go south? And you get yourself in trouble. So this is definitely not the day to be out messing around.
Yeah, I'm gonna add to that. There are storm chasers and avid storm chasers alike that are killed every year, or just about every year, especially in the South Central Plains, and not necessarily from the storms themselves, but there's so many folks on the road in these rural areas where there's one or two roads that eventually cross. They're not paying attention because they're watching the sky, they're watching their phone, they're watching something else, and they end up running into each other going at very high speeds, and so you run into some issues. So that is, in the weather world, we call that storm chaser convergence, because everyone kind of rolls into the same spot, and then you literally have a traffic jam in the middle of a farm field, essentially. That's not something we want on a day like today, just because these storms are moving so quickly.
Yeah, good advice. Tim, we're going to be kind of keeping an eye on you and where you're at and what you're seeing, and we'll be able to share that with our viewers today as well. We appreciate your time, and you guys stay safe out there.
Yeah, good luck, Tim. Stay safe.
All right. We'll check back in with you in a bit. Go ahead. All right. Thanks, Tim.